Greetings, true believers, and welcome to another avenging episode of History of the Marvel Universe. This channel is brought to you in part by Patreon supporters. If you would like to vote in monthly polls and get your name in the special thanks at the end of each episode, you can sign up for as little as $1 per month over at patreon.com/MaryMarvelite. The link is in the description below. Little is known about the early life of the woman named Rita DeMara. For a long time, she was a minor criminal who consistently avoided serious jail time through plea bargains and other agreements. However, she had her chance at something bigger after being employed by the brilliant scientist Hank Pym. He, of course, is famous for having discovered the size-altering Pym particles which allowed him to become the original Ant-Man, a founding member of the Avengers. He used several other identities throughout his heroic career, including Giant Man, Goliath, and finally, after a mental breakdown, Yellowjacket. Between his ongoing struggles with his own mental health and the toll that constant use of Pym particles had taken on his body, Hank eventually left the Avengers and the life of a superhero to return his focus to his scientific research. During this time, he briefly employed Rita DeMara as a lab assistant, and the two shared a short but passionate relationship. And before leaving him, DeMara gained a working knowledge of Pym's technology. So afterwards, she built a helmet that allowed her to remotely take control of Pym's Yellowjacket costume, stealing it from Avengers Mansion. Taking the circuitry from the suit, DeMara made a costume of her own and became the new Yellowjacket. However, she was discovered by Janet Van Dyne, the Avenger known as the Wasp, and Hank Pym's ex-wife. DeMara attempted to shrink and escape, but this was her first time actually changing her size, and she was overwhelmed by the experience. Janet returned Rita to her normal size, and the thief surrendered without a fight. DeMara was subsequently questioned by the Wasp and the costumed mercenary Paladin, but she was rescued by two other supervillains, Screaming Mimi and the Grey Gargoyle. While those two were apprehended by the Wasp, Paladin, and the Black Knight, Yellowjacket escaped with her costume. As it turns out, the two villains were sent by the Avengers' foe, Baron Helmut Zemo, who was assembling a new Masters of Evil. Rita participated in Zemo's infamous attack on Avengers Mansion, but was shocked by the ferocity of the other villains. During this time, she caught the attention of her teammate, the Fixer. While the Fixer was flirtatious towards Yellowjacket, his sentiments were not reciprocated. Then, when the Avengers fought back and retook the mansion, Yellowjacket again surrendered. However, she was later broken out of prison by the Fixer, who sought to win her over. He brought her back to one of his safe houses, hidden inside what appeared to be a dilapidated warehouse. Yellowjacket was thankful for the rescue and impressed by his setup. The Fixer's robotic butler even brought them both sparkling wine. However, things soon became awkward when the Fixer attempted to toast to their apparently blossoming relationship and confessed his love to her. Rita, of course, was not interested. By this time, she had mastered the Yellowjacket suit's shrinking abilities and left the Fixer by flying away at insect size. About a week later, she traveled to the New Jersey home of Janet Van Dyne. Embarrassed by their first encounter, Yellowjacket planned to redeem herself by defeating the Wasp. However, DeMara was soon distracted by Van Dyne's gentleman caller, Dane Whitman. DeMara had previously seen Whitman as the avenging Black Knight, but didn't recognize him without his costume. Dane had come to ask Janet on a date, but he reminded her too much of her ex-husband and she respectfully turned him down. Dane Whitman left, and Rita DeMara, finding him attractive, decided to abandon her revenge plot and follow him instead. However, she was herself followed by the Fixer, who had placed a tracking device in her helmet. The Fixer attacked both Yellowjacket and the Black Knight, and in the ensuing battle, his stray shots nearly caused a young girl to fall into an open pit. Fortunately, while Yellowjacket was a criminal, she wasn't about to let that happen and swooped down to save the child, returning her to her mother. However, the Fixer then struck DeMara, stunning her, and threatened to affix a mind control device to make her obedient. Fortunately, the Black Knight came to her aid, fighting off the Fixer long enough for Yellowjacket to regain consciousness. Rita then punched the Fixer in the face hard enough to knock him out, and his armor's autopilot carried him away. She then kissed Dane Whitman before escaping herself, not wanting to be there when the police arrived. Shortly after that, the android Avenger Joe Costa was captured by the rogue geneticist known as the High Evolutionary. The Avengers were disbanded at the time, but Joe Costa was able to send out a distress signal, calling several reserve members to gather at the Hydro base. And because the circuitry in Rita DeMara's Yellowjacket helmet was taken directly from Hank Pym's, she too received the signal. Unable to turn off the alarm herself, she arrived at the Hydro base where the mutant Avenger Beast disabled it. However, Hercules was badly injured when the Masters of Evil attacked Avengers Mansion, and so he insisted on keeping a close eye on Yellowjacket. And so she accompanied the ad hoc team while they went to stop the High Evolutionary from unleashing a weapon called the Genetic Bomb. In the ensuing battle, Rita DeMara proved herself to be a valuable ally. And so when the legendary team later reformed, Yellowjacket was considered for membership. However, deep down Rita didn't believe that she was worthy of such an honor and slipped away shortly before her interview. Unsure of herself, she later returned to her villainous ways when she accepted an invitation from Superia to join her army of supervillain women, the Femizons. However, Superia's plot to gain incredible geopolitical influence by sterilizing every woman on Earth except for her and the Femizons was thwarted by Captain America and his allies. After that, Yellowjacket was intimidated into joining a new version of the Masters of Evil that was being assembled by Dr. Octopus. This was during the Magus' Infinity War, and so while the Avengers were occupied with that, Doc Ock plotted to invade and plunder Avengers Mansion. By this point, Yellowjacket had hoped to leave her life of crime behind and pursue a more heroic path, but agreed to join Octopus because she was afraid of what he would do if she refused him. However, while the Avengers were away, their headquarters was protected by members of the Guardians of the Galaxy from the 31st century. And so in the ensuing battle, Yellowjacket switched sides to help the Guardians. But as I said, this was during the Infinity War, and in that conflict, the evil Magus had created twisted doppelgangers of Earth's superpowered population in an attempt to keep them from interfering with his schemes. And so the Masters of Evil and the Guardians of the Galaxy ultimately formed an uneasy alliance when their own doppelgangers arrived. Once the doppelgangers were destroyed, Dr. Octopus wanted to go back to his original plan, but the other villains felt indebted to the Guardians and chased him off. When the Guardians then returned to their own time, Rita DeMara stowed away on board their ship, traveling with them to the 31st century of their parallel timeline, Earth 691. She revealed herself when one of the Guardians, a Jovian named Charlie 27, was choking to death on a blood clot, and used her powers to shrink down and dislodge it from his throat. Because of this, as well as her efforts at Avengers Mansion during the Infinity War, Rita DeMara was officially inducted into the Guardians of the Galaxy. Shortly after this, the team aided the Sorcerer Supreme, Kruger, and a second group of heroes called the Galactic Guardians in a battle against the Dread Dormammu. During this time, the Galactic Guardian, known as Hollywood, made reference to a past relationship between he and Yellowjacket. Rita was subsequently shocked to learn that Hollywood was the future version of the Avenger Wonder Man who had survived into the 31st century. It should perhaps be reiterated that when Yellowjacket traveled to the 31st century with the Guardians of the Galaxy, she also shifted from her native timeline of Reality 616 into the Guardians timeline of Earth 691. This is largely because the Guardians themselves had already changed the past during a previous journey backwards in time, thus ensuring the creation of two separate timelines. For more details, I have a whole video that goes in depth on the events of the 691 timeline and the origin of the Guardians, which I will link in the description below. But my point in bringing this up now is to say that while Wonder Man of Earth 691 had a relationship with Rita DeMara in his own timeline, the 616 Rita isn't necessarily destined to live those events. DeMara then redesigned her costume, giving herself the ability to fly without wings and including Pym particle projectors into her gauntlets, which allowed her to shrink other objects and not just herself. She then accompanied the Guardians back to Earth, where they aided Hollywood's guerrilla allies, the Commandeers, thwart a plot by Dr. Doom. Doom, by the way, had survived into the 31st century by transferring his brain into an android body that used Wolverine's adamantium skeleton as a basis. Doom was damaged while battling the dictatorial mutant queen Rancor, herself a descendant of Wolverine. The ancient villain struck back, nearly killing Rancor, but before he could finish the job, Yellowjacket intervened, driving Doom away and taking Rancor for medical attention. However, the villainous mutant had inherited her ancestors' healing abilities and recovered far quicker than expected. Rancor defeated Yellowjacket and escaped, leaving DeMara feeling like she'd failed. However, she did manage to obtain data disks left behind by Doom that provided them with valuable intel. Yellowjacket was also with the Guardians when Earth President Terran sent them to retrieve the ancient Book of Kells. On this quest, the Guardians met and befriended the book's protectors, Shamrock and Cuchulainn, the Irish wolfhound. Then, with information from the discs that Yellowjacket had stolen from Doom, the Guardians of the Galaxy helped Thor's son Woden defeat the trickster god Loki and freed both his home of Asgard and the superpowered race known as the Inhumans from Loki's enslavement. Yellowjacket continued to prove herself as a valuable member of the team when the Guardians thwarted the plans of the Hell Lord Mephisto and his daughter Malevolence, alongside returning Guardian Yondu Udanta. When Cuchulainn briefly joined the team as well, Yellowjacket and her teammate Nikki both took a liking to him, despite his macho attitude, and helped the Irish demigod acclimate to space travel. When another teammate, the Inhuman Talon, mutated into a more feral form and attacked, Yellowjacket de-escalated the situation by shrinking him down to a manageable size. She subsequently unleashed him while freeing Charlie 27 from a prison planet, and fortunately Talon gained control of himself. After that, Cuchulainn decided to return to Earth, and Yellowjacket volunteered to give him an extra special goodbye. Yellowjacket also experimented with growing as well as shrinking. However, doing so put an extreme strain on her heart, and so there was a limit to how large she could grow and for how long she could maintain it. The Guardians later traveled to the quarantined planet Mars and entered the abandoned base of the so-called Martian Masters, the alien race that had killed most of Earth's heroes in the early 21st century of that timeline. There, Yellowjacket and the others encountered Ripjack, the last surviving Martian who had mutated himself using Spider-Man's DNA. However, the team soon discovered that Ripjack was after an alien plague bringer called Bubonicus. Bubonicus had wiped out the Martians with a deadly artificial virus and was doing the same to other races across the galaxy. Ripjack had been murdering infected people as a mercy killing, and so when the Guardians' leader, Vance Astro, formed an alliance with him against the greater threat, Yellowjacket vocally opposed the idea. While Astro joined with Ripjack and the High Evolutionary to defeat Bubonicus, the other Guardians took individual sabbaticals to consider the future of the team. During Yellowjacket's time away from the Guardians, she was drugged and captured by an alien named Slag, who sought revenge on Hollywood for an earlier defeat. Although Slag had removed the Pym particle projectors from DeMara's gauntlets, she kept with her a spare supply of Hank's old growth pills. This allowed her to escape, and despite the strain on her heart, she defeated the alien single-handedly. However, after that, Rita decided that she wanted to return to her own time and reunite with Hank Pym, even at the risk of being sent back to Earth 691's past and being killed in the Martian invasion. Using 31st century technology to travel back in time, Rita first landed approximately 10 years after she first left her original time period. There, she witnessed a potential future where the Avengers were considered enemies of the state and hunted mercilessly. This was part of a plan concocted by the time-traveling master manipulator Immortus, who at the time was posing as his own younger self, Kang the Conqueror. The full scope of these events, known as the Crossing, are complicated, but the reasons boil down to this. Immortus's masters, the Timekeepers, wanted to erase all of Reality 616, considering humans to be a danger to the multiverse, and fearing what would happen if the Avengers of that timeline led humanity to expand throughout the galaxy. Immortus, however, convinced them to spare that reality as long as he could keep the Avengers in disarray and confined to the Earth. But the important thing is that Rita DeMara witnessed other events in this potential future timeline as she jumped backwards several more times until she reached Avengers Mansion, landing mere months after she'd first left her own time. She tried to warn Iron Man about what she'd seen, but his mind had been corrupted by Immortus into doing his bidding. Before she even realized something was amiss, Rita DeMara was hit with a full-power repulsor blast point blank, killing her instantly. And unfortunately, this marks the end of Rita DeMara's life, killed by a mentally manipulated Tony Stark as part of a plot by Immortus. We don't have time this week to fully delve into the lunacy that is The Crossing and its subsequent retcons, but let me mention that by the end of all this, Tony Stark was killed, sacrificing his own life to stop Immortus's plot, and was then replaced by his own 19-year-old self who had traveled forward in time to become the new Iron Man. Of course, following the Onslaught incident when the Avengers were reborn in a pocket dimension, Tony was revived as his adult self, and upon returning to Earth, he regained his memories of both the original Tony, minus Immortus's manipulations, and Teen Tony, and everyone just sort of stopped talking about the whole thing. Anyway, while Rita DeMara's death may have been unceremonious, the deceased woman got one more chance at heroism years later during the Chaos War. Amatsu Mikaboshi, the Chaos King, had thrown the world into disarray, destroying both the Dream Dimension and the Underworlds. Consequently, the living were plunged into an eternal sleep while the dead were free to walk the Earth. And so Yellowjacket returned alongside several dead Avengers, including Deathcry, the Swordsman, Dr. Druid, the Vision, and the original Captain Marvel. The Marvel's original Captain Marvel, not the Fawcett Publications one. And so the dead Avengers banded together to protect the sleeping bodies of the living ones from the forces of the Chaos King, including Necra and the Grim Reaper. Ultimately, they succeeded in keeping the heroes safe, and for the first time, Rita DeMara felt truly worthy. Not only that, but Yellowjacket also participated in the final battle of the Chaos War. At the end of the day, Amatsu Mikaboshi was defeated by Hercules, who had obtained enough godly power to undo the damage the Chaos King had done, restoring the Dream Dimension and the afterlife, allowing the living to live and the dead to rest once again. And for good or for ill, that is the end of Rita DeMara, the second Yellowjacket. But thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, share the video, and subscribe for more marvelous content. Be sure to leave a comment letting me know what Marvel hero or villain you want to hear about next, and as always, the issues referenced in this video are listed in the description below if you would like to read them for yourself, as well as links to other places you can find me, including my Patreon page, where for only $1 a month you can get your name in these special thanks here, and help decide what topics get covered on the channel. So until next time, true believers, Excelsior!